Have you ever noticed? Sometimes you wake up feeling perfectly fine, but just a few minutes of scrolling on your phone can leave your mind in chaos. 1. Train yourself to anticipate the negative, a headline about the economy, a heated debate on social media, or maybe just one nasty comment from someone, and suddenly, without anything major happening, your mood for the entire day sinks. I've seen this pattern over and over again with many of my patients. People in their late 30s or 40s, juggling careers, family responsibilities, and the challenge of staying healthy. They don't come to me with a clear physical illness, but with a deep mental fatigue kind of exhaustion they can't quite explain. When I ask, how much time do you spend each day on news, social media, or listening to other people complain? Most give me an awkward smile. Some even admit to checking their phones 100 times a day. What's fascinating is that they don't realize most of the anxiety and stress they carry doesn't even belong to them. Imagine this: your mind is like a garden. Every piece of information, every story, every word you hear is like a seed. Falling into it, if you're not careful, the weeds, bad news, negative words, pointless comparisons will grow faster than the flowers. And then you wonder why you don't feel at peace. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you, and welcome those you are capable of improving." In today's world, this doesn't just apply to the people you meet face to face, but to everyone you follow online, and every source of information you allow into your mind. Here's the problem. We live in an age where the input never stops. The phone keeps buzzing. Emails, news, videos, endless arguments. Do you ever feel like you're being pulled into dozens of battles, everyday battles, that were never yours to fight in the first place? I once worked with a client, a 42-year-old entrepreneur who felt constant pressure and couldn't sleep for months, not because his company was failing, but because every morning he spent 45 minutes reading financial news, political drama, and even random stories unrelated to him. "I need to stay informed for potential risks," he told me. But the truth was, his brain was stuck in alarm mode all day, even when there was no real danger in sight. Once we set a rule: limit news intake to 10 minutes a day from carefully chosen sources within 3 weeks. His sleep improved and his mind became much clearer. From a scientific perspective, our brain has something called the reticular activating system, a filter that decides what information gets your attention. If you constantly feed it negative news, this filter will start searching for even more of the same. That's why the more you expose yourself to negativity, the more negativity you seem to find. It's like buying a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. A Stoic would remind you, not everything that happens in the world deserves a place in your mind. And I agree, if you want a peaceful mind, you must guard its gates. Try a simple experiment tomorrow when you wake up. Don't grab your phone immediately. Give yourself 30 minutes in silence, or listen to gentle music, or talk with your family. Then, when you do consume information, choose it as carefully as you choose food for your body. You wouldn't eat spoiled food just because it's free, right? Your mind works the same way. I know it's not easy. We're addicted to the feeling of being constantly updated. But remember, most things you see online don't require an immediate reaction or any reaction at all. Every time you say no to a source of negative energy, you're saying yes to your own peace. And keep this in mind, worry needs fuel to survive. If you stop feeding it with chaotic news and pointless arguments, it will wither. So, starting today, protect your mind like a stoic warrior guarding a fortress. Set time limits for news. Curate your friend list and the pages you follow. Surround yourself with inspiring people and uplifting stories, because you are the one who decides what enters the garden of your mind and what doesn't. Would you agree that a garden is only beautiful when the gardener removes the weeds? If so, become the gardener of your own mind. And trust me, in just a short time, you'll notice the space inside you becoming brighter and calmer. 2. Live fully in the present. Focus on this moment instead of being pulled into an uncertain future or a past that's gone. Have you ever sat in a meeting, glanced at the clock, and realized you couldn't remember a single thing the person across from you just said? It's not because they were boring, it's because your mind was somewhere else. Maybe worrying about how you'll pay the bills at the end of the month, or replaying that argument you had last week. And in doing so, you completely missed the moment unfolding right in front of you. I see this all the time. Entrepreneurs, parents, professionals in their 30s and 40s, carrying the weight of dozens of responsibilities. They tell me, life just feels like it's passing by, but I'm not really living it. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He didn't say this to make you ignore your plans or forget the future. He said it to remind you that the only thing you truly own is this very moment. I want you to picture this. You're sitting at the dinner table, your favorite dish right in front of you, but your mind is busy thinking about a meeting next week. You eat, but you're not really tasting it. You're there, but you're not present. And later, when you look back, the whole meal has passed, and the only thing you remember is worry. Modern science says the same thing, just in different words. Our brain works best when it's here and now. Pull it into the past, and it's prone to regret. Push it into the future, and it's prone to anxiety. But when you anchor it in the present, you cut off the fuel supply for both regret and worry. I remember working with a 38-year-old patient, a single mother. She lived in a constant state of fear that her children wouldn't get the education they deserved, fear of losing her job, fear of sudden illness. One day, we tried a very simple exercise. Every time her mind started wandering into future scenarios, she would pause, take a deep breath, and ask herself, right now, is there actually anything threatening me? 9 times out of 10, the answer was no. Gradually, she realized most of her fears were nothing but shadows of a future that hadn't even happened. The Stoics didn't avoid reality, they prepared for it. But they also knew that worrying before a problem truly arrives as punishing yourself twice. They chose to live fully in the moment, and when the future came, they faced it with the strength that the present had already forged in them. So how do you build this habit? It doesn't need to be complicated. When you drink your morning coffee, notice the aroma, the bitterness, the heat on your tongue. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet, your breathing, the sound of the wind around you. When you talk with someone, look into their eyes and really listen instead of planning your next reply. I know, it sounds simple, but it's these small things that help anchor your mind in the present. And when you are in the present, not only do you reduce anxiety, you actually begin to live. Have you ever asked yourself, if today were my last day, how would I live it? This question isn't meant to scare you, it's a reminder that life doesn't happen tomorrow or yesterday. It's happening right now as you hear these words. And I want you to try saying this to yourself. Right now is enough. Because when you truly believe it, you'll see. Peace isn't found in a future without worry, it's found in the moment you choose to live fully. 3. Amor fati. Love your fate. Some things in life arrive like a storm, sudden, powerful, and completely out of your control. You didn't choose it, you didn't want it, but it came anyway. A marriage falls apart, a job is lost, a diagnosis you weren't prepared for. I once had a 45-year-old male patient who had spent his entire career climbing to an executive position at a major company. One day, in just a few hours, it was all gone due to restructuring. He came to see me not because of a physical illness, but because he didn't know who he was without that title. We talked for a long time, and I shared with him a Stoic concept called amor fati, love your fate. Amor fati is not just acceptance, it goes a step further, embracing every event as an essential part of your path, not as an enemy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." It sounds contradictory, doesn't it? How can you love something that causes you pain? I want you to imagine rowing a boat. On the river, you hit a log, blocking the current. You could complain, stop, or try to push it away. But a Stoic would ask, can I use this change in the current to reach a better shore? The thing blocking you today might just be the very thing pushing you toward a new journey you never dared to imagine. That same patient eventually decided to use his severance package to open a small coffee shop, something he had always dreamed of but never dared to do. A year later, he told me, if I hadn't lost my old job, I would never have the life I have now. That's amor fati, turning an obstacle into a part of your story you're grateful for. I'm not saying you have to like every hardship. Pain and loss still hurt. But amor fati teaches you to see them as raw material, not waste. Just as fire turns coal into diamonds, challenges turn people into stronger versions of themselves. So, how do you learn to love your fate? When something bad happens, instead of asking, why me? Try asking, what can this teach me? Or how can I use this to become stronger? Each time you answer, you're shifting from victim to creator of your life story. Have you ever experienced something you hated at first only to later realize it was a disguised gift? If so, that's amor fati in action. And if you can't see that yet in your current struggles, be patient. Time and a new perspective will reveal it. Remember, we can't change the wind, but we can adjust the sails. Amor fati is the art of adjusting your sails so that any wind will carry you forward. When you live this way, no event can truly break you, because everything, good or bad, becomes part of the path you've chosen to love. 4. Turning failure into an art form. There's something I've noticed after years of working with people in their mid-30s to mid-40s. Almost all of us carry scars from the past. A project that failed, a relationship that fell apart, a rejection that cut deep. And often we hide those scars as if they were something to be ashamed of. But for me and for Stoic philosophy, failure is not the end point. It is the raw material from which you can create something more beautiful, more meaningful. I remember a client, a 39-year-old woman, who once dreamed of opening a small bakery. But in her first attempt, she nearly went bankrupt after just 6 months. She told me, I feel like I'm not good enough. I ruined my own dream. We spent many sessions analyzing her experience, and then I asked her, if you saw this failure as an unfinished painting, how would you keep painting it? That question left her silent for a long while. Then, she began to write down every lesson she had learned, from how to choose a location, to managing costs, to keeping her spirit steady. A year later, she reopened her bakery, and this time, it was a great success. The Stoics believe that every obstacle is an opportunity to sculpt yourself. Like an artist looking at a rough block of stone only, they know the beautiful form hidden inside. Failure is simply the first few chisel. Marx.Science agrees. Neuroscience research shows that the brain learns most powerfully from mistakes when we analyze them and act differently next time. If you see failure only as a loser label, you miss its entire value. But if you see it as a draft, you will keep writing your story. I want you to think of one of your own failures. Instead of asking, "Why did that happen to me?" ask, "What can I create from here?" Stoics don't wish for failure to disappear. They wish to get better at turning it into something useful. Imagine if every crack in your life were filled with gold, like the Japanese art of kintsugi ware, broken bowls are repaired with gold to become one-of-a-kind treasures. Your life is the same. Failure doesn't make you less valuable, makes you impossible to replicate. So next time you face failure, remember, you are not the finished product. You are the artist, and your life is the work in progress. 5. Practice voluntary An interesting paradox. Most of us spend our whole lives chasing comfort. Yet that very habit makes us more fragile when real hardship arrives. The Stoics understood this very well. They deliberately stepped outside their comfort zone, placing themselves in inconvenient situations, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew that if they were already familiar with discomfort, any crisis would simply feel like a rehearsal. I want you to imagine this. You're training for a long-distance run. If you only run on a treadmill in an air-conditioned room, the day you have to run under the blazing sun, you'll burn out almost immediately. But if you occasionally train outdoors, both your body and mind won't be shocked. Life works the same way. Seneca, one of the wealthiest Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome, would spend a few days each month sleeping on the hard floor, eating coarse bread, and wearing cheap clothes. He would ask himself, "Is this what I used to fear?" And he always found the answer. Most fears live only in the imagination, while reality is far less frightening than we think. I applied this with a 40-year-old male patient who was terrified of feeling hungry. He always carried snacks and became anxious at the slightest hunger pang. We agreed to try skipping a meal safely, starting with fasting through breakfast one day a week. After a few weeks, he realized his body didn't collapse. His mind was actually sharper. And most importantly, his fear of hunger vanished. You can start small. Take a cold shower in the morning. Walk instead of driving. Turn off the air conditioning for an afternoon, or challenge yourself to do the hard task before the easy one. Each time you do this, you're telling yourself, "I can endure. I am ready." Science also confirms that mild stress experiences, if repeated intentionally, make your nervous system more adaptable and increase your resilience. It's like going to the gym for your muscles, but this is a workout for your willpower. Stoics don't try to create a life without storms. They create a mind that is used to the storm. And when you know you've already walked through cold rain many times, a sudden downpour will no longer make you panic. So, don't just seek comfort all the time. Seek a little discomfort on purpose. Because the less you fear discomfort, the less you fear life itself. Point 6. Daily self-reflection is one simple yet incredibly powerful habit that the Stoics have practiced for thousands of years. sitting down at the end of the day and asking yourself, how did I live today? Sounds simple, right? But in our busy modern world, how many of us truly do this? Most people end the day by grabbing their phones, scrolling through social media, or letting the evening news pour all sorts of fresh worries into their minds. And so, we carry that chaos straight into our sleep. Seneca once wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit of mine, I examine my entire day, going through what I've done and said." He didn't do this to scold himself, but to shine a light on his own mind. I've given this exercise to many clients. One woman, a 37-year-old project manager, constantly felt overloaded and lost in direction. I suggested she spend just 10 minutes each evening writing down 3 things. Something she did well today, something she would like to do differently, one lesson she learned. After a month, she told me, I no longer feel like I'm just running in circles. I can actually see where I'm making progress and where I need to adjust. You see, when we don't practice self-reflection, our mind becomes like a room full of clutter that we never clean. Thoughts, emotions, events, they just pile up, and anxiety grows out of that very mess. But when you take the time to sort it out, you go to sleep with a tidy mind and wake up with a clearer sense of direction. Science has proven this as well. Keeping a reflection journal reduces stress, improves memory, and strengthens decision-making. It's like pressing the reset button for your brain every single day. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to make this a complicated ritual. It can be writing or simply sitting in silence and thinking. The only requirement is honesty with yourself, no audience, no judgment, just you and the truth. The Stoics knew that to avoid being swept away by life, we must regularly look back at ourselves. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will eventually lead you astray. So, tonight, before bed, try this. Turn off all your screens, sit down, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, did I live today in alignment with my values? If the answer is no, don't scold yourself, let it be a promise for tomorrow. And if the answer is yes, smile, because you've just taken another step toward peace. 7. Connect with a circle of wisdom. There's a saying I always carry with me. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It sounds simple, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that your mental and emotional life is deeply shaped by your circle. The Stoics of ancient Rome understood this well. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you and welcome those whom you are capable of improving. What does this mean? It means your mind is like a field. The seeds you plant and who plants them with, you determine your harvest. I once worked with a 41-year-old man who was often stressed and quick-tempered. When I asked who he spent most of his time with, he described a group of co-workers who constantly complained, gossiped, and blamed everything around them. He admitted, I know they're negative, but they're the only people I see outside of work. We worked on expanding his circle, joining a book club, connecting with a sports community, and meeting people who had clear life goals. 6 months later, he told me, I think and speak differently now. I'm less quick to anger, and I feel like I'm growing. Science also shows that emotions and habits are contagious within human social networks. If you spend time with people who are often anxious, your likelihood of becoming anxious increases. But if you surround yourself with those who stay calm and solve problems, you learn to do the same almost instinctively. Connecting with a circle of wisdom doesn't mean abandoning every negative person in your life. It means creating balanced spending. More time with those who expand your perspective, spark meaningful questions, and inspire you to live by your values. This could be a philosophy or personal development reading group. It could be a sports club where people cheer each other on. Or it could be a single friend with whom every conversation leaves you lighter and more motivated to do something good for yourself. The Stoics believed that your mental environment is just as important as your physical one. You wouldn't live in a room full of toxic smoke, so why leave your mind in a cloud of negativity? So ask yourself, who is influencing me every day? And if the answer worries you, it's time to widen your circle. Because when you step into a community of wisdom, you don't just receive support. You gain clarity on a path you might never have seen alone. 8. Premeditatio malorum. Preparing for the worst. Have you ever worried about a situation that hasn't even happened? So much that your heart raced, your hands went cold, and your mind spun out of control. All because you imagined a bad scenario and your body believed it was actually happening. The Stoics had a very different approach. They called it malorum, premeditation of evils. But unlike our endless, frantic worrying, they did it calmly and deliberately, so that when trouble really came, they were already prepared in mind. I remember working with a 38-year-old woman who had to give a presentation in front of hundreds of people. She was terrified of making mistakes, of forgetting her lines, of being judged. We sat down and I asked, "What's the worst that could happen?" She said, "I might forget an important part. The audience might laugh and I'd feel humiliated." I smiled and asked, "So, if that happens, what will you do?" We made a plan. If she forgot her lines, she would pause, take a sip of water, and look at her notes. If someone laughed, she would smile back and keep going. Only after she visualized and accepted the worst-case scenario did she say, "I feel so much lighter. Now I know I'll be okay, even if it happens." The Stoics didn't predict the worst to scare themselves, they did it to disarm it. Like a soldier who trains before battle, they had already fought 100 times in their minds, so when the real battle came, they were not shaken. You can apply this every morning. Before starting your day, ask yourself, what could test my patience today? Who might anger me, and how will I respond? What might not go as planned, and how will I stay calm? When you practice this often, life's surprises lose much of their power to throw you off course. When you prepare in advance, you walk into life with a completely different mindset. Instead of hoping everything will be perfect, you accept that difficulties are part of the path and you're ready to face them. Modern psychology calls this stress inoculation, a kind of mental vaccination. By running through small trials in your imagination, you build an immune system against anxiety. And I want you to remember, premeditatio malorum is not pessimism. It's a way to enter each day like someone who has already rehearsed for every scenario. You can't control the wind, but you can prepare your sails. And once your sails are ready, any wind can move you forward. 9. Live by virtue, not by results. Have you ever poured your heart into something and still failed? Or, on the flip side, done something half-heartedly but ended up succeeding, praised, even celebrated? The problem is, if we measure our self-worth only by results, life becomes an emotional roller, coasterizing and falling with outcomes we can't fully control. The Stoics chose a different way to live. They built their lives on virtue, not outcomes. Epictetus said, Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that they happen just as they do happen, and your life will go well. I remember a client, 36 years old, who applied for his dream job. He spent weeks preparing practicing interviews, refining every detail. In the end, he wasn't selected. He came to me, discouraged. I failed. I asked, "Did you act in alignment with your values? Did you prepare thoroughly, answer honestly, and treat the interviewers with respect?" He said, "Yes, I did my very best." I smiled. "Then you've already succeeded. The outcome is the world's part to decide. But your actions, that's your part, and in that, you've already won." Living by virtue means that before every decision, you ask, "Is this right by my values?" Not, "Will this make me win?" It frees you from dependence on praise, recognition, or external numbers. Psychological research also shows that when your goals are based on process and values rather than final results, you're more persistent and less stressed. Outcomes can change, but your values, if you stay true to them, are always in your hands. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That's it." The Stoics knew that a peaceful night's sleep doesn't come from winning every race. It comes from knowing you lived with integrity all day. You can start today. Next time you worry about results, pause and ask, "If I fail but I stay true to my principles, will I still be at peace?" If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Living by virtue doesn't make you perfect, but it makes you the kind of person who can hold their head high even in failure. And that is the most lasting victory. 10. The control test. There's a simple question I want you to apply whenever you feel worried or upset. Is this within my control? The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the principle of separating what you can control from what you cannot. It sounds simple, but it has changed the lives of many I've met. I remember a 43-year-old male patient who was constantly stressed about the stock market. Every time prices dropped, he'd lose sleep for nights. When I asked, "Can you control the market?" he sighed, "No." I continued, "Then what can you control?" He thought for a moment. "My investment strategy, how I allocate my assets, and my reaction when the market moves." We began working on those very things. Slowly, he learned to let go of what wasn't his to hold. The Stoics believed that most suffering comes from clinging to what we cannot grasp. The weather, other people's words, the outcome of a game, the past, these are all outside our control. Yet we spend 90% of our energy on them, and only 10% on the things we truly command. Science agrees. When your brain focuses on factors you can influence, anxiety decreases and decision-making improves. But when you obsess over what can't be changed, the brain falls into learned helplessness, losing the will to act. You can use the control test right now. When bad news comes, pause and ask, "Is this within my control?" If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, act on it immediately. For example, if someone insults you online, you can't control what they say, but you can control whether you respond in anger or remain calm. If you miss an opportunity, you can't control someone else's decision, but you can control how you prepare for the next one. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you live by this principle, you'll notice your emotions feel lighter. You stop throwing your energy at brick walls, and instead invest it in doors you can actually open. And here's the surprising part: when you do that, not only do you become calmer, you also become far more effective. 11. Training the minds. Empty space. Have you ever felt like your head was a room with the music on, the TV blaring, and your phone ringing all at the same time? Not because you want it that way, but because information, work, messages, and news keep pouring in without asking permission. In a noisy world, mental empty space has become a luxury. But to the Stoics, it's a matter of survival. I once worked with a 39-year-old businesswoman who started her day checking email before she even got out of bed and ended it replying to client messages right before falling asleep. When I asked, "When was the last time you were truly alone with your own thoughts?" she was silent for a long time. She realized that for years she hadn't let her mind breathe. The Stoics believed the mind is like a lake. If you keep throwing stones into it, the surface will always ripple, and you won't be able to see the bottom. Mental empty space is when you stop throwing stones, letting the water settle, so you can finally see clearly. Science has confirmed this too. Spending just 5 to 10 minutes a day in complete silence, no phone, no talking, no new information can significantly lower cortisol, the stress hormone, improve memory, and enhance decision-making. You don't need to make it complicated. You can sit in your garden, close your eyes, and listen to the wind. Or simply turn off every device, sit in a chair, and focus on your breathing. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. Your mind will constantly want to do something. But if you stay with it, you'll start to feel a quiet space opening up inside you. I like to call this time cleaning the room of the mind. Just like a house, if you don't clean regularly, things pile up until you have no room to live. The mind is the same without empty space. It becomes overcrowded, and anxiety finds its way in. The Stoics understood that in order to respond calmly to the world, you must first have a place of peace within yourself. And mental empty space is that fortress. So starting today, give your mind at least a few minutes of active silence each day. This isn't laziness, it's sharpening the sword of your intellect so that when you step out into the world, you face it with clarity and strength. And when you've experienced this empty space long enough, you'll see peace isn't something you have to go find. It's always been within you. You just need to clear away the noise so it can reveal itself. The Stoics don't seek a life without storms. They seek to stand firm in the middle of them. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Pick one of these habits and start today. You don't have to do them all at once. Just one step, then another dot. And when you stay consistent, you'll realize peace doesn't come from the world changing. It comes from becoming the kind of person who can be at peace no matter what changes. If you agree, leave a comment. I choose calm. I choose strength. I choose Stoicism. And together, we'll walk forward like Stoic warriors in a world full of chaos.